Hello and welcome to episode 167 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And we had our first sporting event last night, the UFC.
Lightweight.
And when we had it, despite the fact that one of the players had tested positive. And I was sitting outside, I'm probably going to move inside because I hear a lawnmower going. Can you hear the lawnmower?
Here's something vaguely in the background. But that's about as much excitement as people can get now, you know.
I go inside. You start talking about your vision of why the UFC and everything else, what your thoughts are.
Well, I like the UFC thing from the standpoint of I like the idea of Fight Island, like we're making the Mortal Kombat game real. But I still feel like UFC is a very niche sport. And I feel like if you watch UFC, you watch UFC. If you don't, I don't think being starved for sports is going to drive you to it. Personally, I'm not a big UFC guy. And just it being on isn't, and I want sports isn't going to make me watch UFC. Like, it's not a substitute for something else for me, I guess.
No, and Dana White seems to have a Vince McMahon chip on his shoulder. He seems like a real Vince McMahon wannabe to me.
Yeah, and the other problem with UFC, and I know and you know, having done a little training myself and worked with some people here and there, like just the way the sport goes, anyone can be tapped, anyone can be knocked out. It's tough to be a dominant champion that never loses. And I think the fact that everybody loses pretty quickly, to bring in the national audience, you need either a super villain that's this, mean, nasty person that never gets beat. I mean, they kind of had it with Connor, but I mean, it's tough when you don't have somebody that transcends the sport constantly. And I think they've rarely had that in that sport. And I don't see anybody on there now. And I feel like, especially as training has gotten much more, training is better everywhere and you have all these great athletes in it, it's going to be tough for anybody to become such a dominant person that they transcend the sport. Like a 20-0 guy. It's like, oh, you've got to watch this guy. He never loses. Where everyone loses in their first 10 fights, it seems like.
Well, I haven't seen the numbers yet, but I imagine the ratings numbers of the subscriber numbers will be off the charts.
See, that's what I was saying before. I don't know if you missed that part, but I don't think they will. I still think people, you don't have a big name, and I still think UFC is, I think it's sort of settled into its niche. I've sort of accepted with hockey. I enjoy watching hockey. It's not for everybody, and it's tough for you to grow the sport when people, I don't know. It's
So I just think it would sit high, it would get all the subscribers it usually does, and then I was figuring it might get another 10% of people just wanting to do something.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
That's kind of what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Now, on another note, Korean baseball has been on at 1 o'clock in the morning, and as much as I like watching baseball, as much as I said that I wanted to watch the Korean baseball, I have not stayed up till 1 a.m. to watch Korean baseball. And I don't see myself staying up till 1 o'clock to watch Korean baseball. I mean, I wish that if they would rebroadcast it the next day, which I don't think they're doing, but if they would just show it, the next day during the afternoon or the evening or something like that, I would watch it just to see what it was like. But I'm not watching the classic games, I have a hard time, unless it's an unbelievable game that has personal meaning for me.
Right.
I won't watch a replay of a game where I already know what happened. Now, I did watch, right when this whole pandemic thing started, they did the broadcast of, I think it was 1991, the Barry Bonds, the Sid Bream slide into home where the Pirates lost, and I had my World Series tickets in my hand.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it, and it's like punishing for me. But I watched it again just to see Barry Bonds' lame arm not make the right throw. So.
Okay. Well, I did watch, one of the best live game experiences, we went and watched the Steelers win the Super Bowl in Arizona, in Tampa over Arizona. And that's
where I would actually rewatch it. But it's a personal meaning for us.
It has personal meaning. It also has, in my lifetime, I think the biggest impact NFL play of all time for me, and it's probably for a Super Bowl, is the James Harrison interception. The 100-yard touchdown. That swung that Super Bowl. That's why the Steelers won. And it's just an incredible play, incredible play. Him rumbling down, he drops back into coverage, picks off Kurt Warner, goes 100 yards, rumbling, tumbling down the sideline, gets tackled into the end zone by Fitzgerald. You keep thinking he's going to get caught. He's going to get caught. Like it's.
Yeah, and I think that Super Bowl they ranked all the Super Bowls. That was definitely top 5. I can't remember what it was.
Because that was a great game. Because a lot of times Super Bowls are not great games, but that was, the Santonio Holmes catch at the end.
It went down to the last 10 seconds.
Yeah. Because even on the other end, like they were back at almost the 50 with Kurt Warner with the football. I mean, and then you had the big sack by Woodley. I mean, it was. I think if it's a game that like you said, it's tough to go back and watch games you know the outcome to. But if it's a game, if it's an amazing all timer, multiple great plays with personal meaning to it, with your own fandom, then you're gonna So if you're a Patriot fan, you've probably got a shit ton of stuff to watch for the past 2 decades.
Like if they put on the North Carolina Georgetown game where Jordan did that shot at the end, just because I've been watching The Last Dance, I would rewatch that.
I'm surprised they're not doing that.
It's not my personal fan, but I mean, just because I'm all caught up in The Last Dance right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I look forward to that every Sunday night. I'm watching it right when it comes on. I'm glued to the television for those 2 hours. And it's really fascinating. I mean, I like the unfiltered approach. If you want filtered, watch on ESPN2. If you want unfiltered, watch on ESPN. And I think tonight, there's going to be a lot of unfiltered tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight will give you a lot of insight as to how competitive Michael Jordan was in everything, even practice.
Insanely so, yes.
And so I'm not looking forward to seeing Steve Kerr get popped in the face, but I did hear the interview with Steve Kerr the other day on ESPN when they're talking about it. And I mean, this is really all ESPN has going on right now. And so the show is the Last Dance is probably a topic every day, leading up to and then following each episode.
Yeah, because I mean, there's not, like you said, there's, you can only, I mean, I don't think UFC is going to determine the numbers. Probably The Last Dance is probably the biggest thing. And then, the numbers always point out you can talk NFL 24/7. So,
okay.
Whether
did you watch the NFL schedule release?
I did.
And did you like the way they did it?
I thought it was good. Yeah, I mean, I did watch, I do try to make sure that whether I fully support them or not, I always make sure I listen to analytics. And the one analytics thing that they said has been almost a constant, like with almost no variables, is that strength of schedule is completely meaningless from year to year. So even if it looks like your team has the hardest schedule in the NFL, like the way the NFL works, players, trades, draft picks, coaching changes, injuries, like there's a lot of worst to first and first to worst. And, you just never know, just because it looks like you've got an easy schedule doesn't mean those teams haven't made a jump and vice versa. Although this year, with almost no training camp, you would think the teams that are bringing back the most stable, little turnover team is probably the team that's going to be able to at least get out to a hot start from a gambling standpoint, I would think.
Agreed, and the team's less dependent upon the new players coming in, whether they're free agents or rookies.
Right. Or people returning from injury, as in the Steelers case, the Roethlisberger, you just get to, and the teams
It's going to be interesting, So did they do it like Madden? Is that how they did it? Because what I saw, I watched it on one of my, either Athletic or the Steeler app or whatever it was, and they did it, each game was like those 2 teams playing Madden.
Oh, yeah.
So like they showed the highlight of like Juju Smith-Schuster catching a pass in a game against somebody, but it was definitely the Madden thing. And is that how they did it on the live broadcast?
Well, I didn't watch. I watched it like you did. I watched it on Bleacher Report, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't get regular TV, so I don't watch live broadcast stuff. So.
Well, I thought it was kind of fun watching it on the Madden version.
Yeah. And speaking of Madden, they revealed the new Madden this year. And once again, people are complaining because they feel like you can do a roster update and not charge $60, but people pay for it, so why not just put it out? But Patrick Mahomes, obviously maybe the best player in the NFL right now, is younger than Madden, the video game. Just for perspective, throw that out there to make people feel old.
Wow.
Yeah. That there's been a John Madden video game longer than Patrick Mahomes has been on this earth.
And it's been a popular video game for longer than Patrick Mahomes been out. Not just a video game.
No.
But a popular video game. A game that's looked forward to every year.
And like I said, I am guilty of the people like where there are incremental changes. If you play the game, it's sort of like a Call of Duty or these other games where people are like, it's the same every year. It's not. There are little subtle differences in the AI. There's little things they make in the running and the passing, like tiny improvements that if you play a lot, you notice. But every year I always say, you know what? I'll just, I'll create the new players on the Steelers, through Creative Player. I'll have the updated roster and I won't pay for the game. And in every single year, when it comes out near my birthday, I buy the game, the new copy.
Yeah, you've been a loyal supporter.
I have been. And, it's one of those, it's also got to that point where a lot of the brands have got to this point where it's so successful and so popular that people nitpick it and trash it more than they appreciate just how great of a product it is. I think because it's reached the level of success that it has, that people are just looking to, find everything wrong with. But every single year, it grades in the high 8s out of 10. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the NFL schedule release, I am excited to see the Saints-Buccaneers match up on week 1.
Oh, yeah.
I'm real excited to see that.
Well, I think, Brady being Tom Brady, obviously, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. You can argue where he ranks the greatest players of all time, certainly most successful quarterback of all time, but also now essentially the oldest quarterback of all time, give or take. And you're just waiting to see, can he still do it?
Yeah, there was a movie years ago called Number One, and Charlton Heston starred in it. And he played this aging New Orleans Saints quarterback that had been the greatest quarterback ever, and it just dealt with his aging and the challenges behind him and everything else. So it will be an interesting year, but if you see the Tom Brady interviews lately, he's definitely had some work done.
He says that's just from drinking water and no tomatoes, avoiding the sun,
No, he's had some work done. He's had some work done. There's no longer any wrinkles.
Yeah, I did notice the lack of wrinkles looks a little bit odd.
Yeah.
But he is married to a supermodel, so maybe that just...
I know, and so he probably used what the supermodel used.
Yeah. I do feel, and granted, you wouldn't notice if it was done really well, and maybe that's the point, and maybe it's just usually there's not, but I feel like when you mess with the face, you can always tell.
Yeah.
Whether it's Botox or whatever you do, you can obviously a deviated septum repaired into a nose job, if you didn't know the person beforehand, you might not notice, but you can almost tell when somebody's getting older and they're starting to do stuff to make their face not look older.
Well, all I know is it looks like somebody took a sander to his face and then buffed it and put a clear coat finish on it. Because he looks really young and wrinkle-free.
Yeah.
But in any case, I look forward to that game.
Indeed. And then,
I'm looking forward to finding out, when Tua will take the field for the Dolphins.
I think especially given the way this year is, I don't see him playing until December.
Fitzpatrick had a nice year last year.
Fitzpatrick had a nice year. If you're the Dolphins, you've added all these pieces. You've supposedly got your quarterback. One more year of making sure the guy is completely healthy. Again, I'm not a doctor, and I haven't seen his medical reports. If I did, I wouldn't know what they were about. But I think given, that whatever this year is going to be, and who knows, maybe in 2 months we're back and everything looks normal again. Maybe it's empty stadiums. Maybe they're playing at Jerry World. Who knows? But I feel like there's going to be a lot of different, so that there's no reason to throw a guy like Tua out there too soon. But I think they play the Bengals in week 12. So you could have Tua Burrow week 12 would be kind of exciting for him to make his debut.
It would be kind of fun. That'd be something to look forward to.
Yeah. Now, this is probably just me as a Steeler fan being hopeful, but I'm also wanting to really see how the Ravens adjust to being on everybody's radar this year. Because they were a team that they ran the ball more than almost any team in NFL history, which is going against what every team has been doing lately. And I think they had a lot of really, I think the luck typically went their way, and not saying that they didn't earn it, but it's the same. I'll say with the Steelers. The Steelers had an incredibly high number of turnovers, and the numbers point out that usually isn't sustainable year after year.
Well, Chiefs, 49ers, Ravens are the favorites.
And I don't see why they wouldn't be.
I don't see why they wouldn't be. But I think you have a good point. I mean, you didn't adjust. You didn't have that whole year to adjust to Lamar Jackson. Now you do. You had the whole offseason. You're scheming, you're planning things, you're doing things like that. And you saw just in the playoffs that they were able to take a lot of stuff away from them.
Right.
I mean, I was shocked when Tennessee beat them. Shocked. I didn't see any way that could happen.
No. But I mean, a team that runs the ball all the time. I mean, I think even though they did it last year, I think people are going to scheme against they'll learn how some of those running plays work, and obviously that goes back both ways. But I think we're going to see, can they adjust? Because they're not like Kansas City; they can just do everything from every angle at any given point. The Ravens have a much more defined identity, so we'll have to see if they can overcome that.
Okay, a couple questions for you.
All right.
Do we see Antonio Brown this fall?
I would say in good Antonio Brown news, I have not heard his name in months. So, presumably that's a good thing. I think
I've seen the reports of him working out with Hollywood Brown and Lamar Jackson and wanting to be a Raven.
Well, I would hate that personally. I think we're going to see him. I think he's still one of the best in the world in what he does.
Yeah.
Because people always like to throw out I think the NFL likes to throw out Ray Rice is some kind of example. But Ray Rice wasn't good when he left before the incident in the elevator. He averaged 3.1 yards a carry, and he wasn't the Ray Rice from, early in his career. Antonio Brown hasn't
played a year.
No, but he left still being Antonio Brown. The last time we saw him on a field, he caught 5 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown for New England. So, and no one has ever questioned his work ethic or his athletic. I think he's got 3 or 4 more prime years. And I just... All
right, so say somebody wants to sign him. How many games is he suspended for before he gets to play?
I think 6. And when it's all said and done.
Okay.
And again, I don't even know if they have precedent to really set. The legal stuff is all sort of up in the air, so we have to see how it all plans out. But it could be that kind of thing where you argue, what are you getting him on? The dude hasn't, necessarily done this or done that. So,
yeah.
But I don't think.
I'm going to go to a game in LA this year. I want to see the big stadium.
Yeah.
I'm a little down with that, and I was hoping to see a game in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 2 things I probably won't get to do this year.
I would say probably not. You start looking at some of the things that are already being postponed to 2021, and it just doesn't seem realistic. I watched a video this morning on Disney China potentially reopening, and it just seems like such a poop show. They've got X's painted where you can't be standing if anywhere near somebody. There's a health check. There's just all these steps just to go through to a half-empty park. And I feel like if the big businesses of the world thought this was going to be gone and they believed it, then we wouldn't be going through all these crazy steps to hopefully have partial,
Here's where I think everything's going to go.
Okay.
Okay, it's now what, May 10th, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think by May 31st, we're going to have an idea of how bad this is or how bad this isn't.
Well, that second wave is the scare, that they're predicting.
I know, but we're going to do something before that.
Yeah.
So by May 31st. And then here's my 2 thoughts. One is that what everybody says, there's 2 schools of thought on this. One is it's not as bad as you think, because if you look at the percentages, of the people that haven't been tested. You look at all these people you think have it, the death rate is probably less than 2%, which is like the flu. Okay, that's one school of thought, right?
Right.
What if it's wrong? What if the school of thought is, what if it's like 5%? And then, because of the economy and everything else, do you like be like the Purge or like Hunger Games, and you decide on what an acceptable death rate is?
Well,
and that would not surprise me.
No, I mean, I get annoyed when people just bring up death rate and the flu, because this is hepatotoxic and neurotoxic. And there can be, right, and it's not just about the death rate. It's also about infections in the lungs, which could affect you for the rest of your life.
Right.
Breathing problems, respiratory problems. You know, it's very easy to be like, it's only killed X number of people, that's only this percent. But it's like, there's other big events. And we've seen in New York these cases of children now dying. Now, granted, it's a small number, but if it turns out this is related to Corona, which they, you know, Cuomo was coming, or not, is it Cuomo? And he's come out and the speculation is that is, I mean, we can't be putting kids at risk. I don't think this, I mean.
No. But I was just out this morning because I had to get something at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I wear my mask. Everybody in Publix was wearing a mask. I would say the mask today might have been 50% overall.
Okay.
With maybe 70% over 50 and maybe 20% under 50. So there's a lot of bulletproof people out there.
Yeah.
I saw the beaches yesterday. I saw them already closed down Naples. Because there's nothing, people just cannot, they can't ease into it. They're just insane.
Well, you saw 62,000 people went to Georgia. 20-something% of those from Florida when they started reopening Georgia to go get fucking haircuts and nails done. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
Now, I know I have a long lock of hair and I can just pull it up in a bun, which is what I do almost every day anyway. But like, it just doesn't seem like it's, you know, the kind of things people seem like they're angry about are pretty pathetic.
Yep. So it's going to affect our sports.
It is.
And it affects our entertainment.
Big time. I know that personally.
Yeah. And how much when we miss new content. So I'm just glad I didn't watch. I'm glad I never streamed to the extent that I stream now.
Yeah.
Because now I've got all kinds of stuff to watch that I get stuff backed up that people tell me to watch.
I know. Well, this is that thing where I think we've talked about this on the show before, where it's like I have more shows people have told me are great that I've never seen than I have time to watch. And now I have time to watch.
Yeah. Like, I would have never thought I would like Longmire. But I like the characters. I like the scenery. And I like the fact that it's what I would call common sense law.
Okay.
In other words, there was an episode where a guy begged him to put him in jail rather than his son because he had ruined his son's life. And so they did.
Oh.
They let his son go. I mean, there's just the common sense part of this. It's just, I like it. It's kind of like, you know, like Hank on Chicago PD. There's a lot of times the bad guy doesn't go to jail. A lot of times the bad guy helps him put somebody else in jail. And he works with the bad guys. That's probably realistic.
Probably so.
When I look at Chicago, I mean, you have to have some kind of cooperation with the gangs. Just like in the very first episodes of Hill Street Blues, they would have gang summits and they would negotiate things about what the gangs could do and what they couldn't do. So, I mean, it's realistic. And I've enjoyed the character.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, I signed up for a free month of Shudder on Amazon, and Shudder is like it's like a horror television network, and they've got, you know, Argento and Halloween and some of the old classic, you know, horror movies. They've got a lot of the cheesy Jamie Lee Curtis ones about, you know, murders on trains. They've got some of their own new content. And they have a show called Channel Zero, which is what I've been told to check out. And each season of Channel Zero is like 6 episodes long. And it's like an extended Twilight Zone or Black Mirror episode is probably the easiest way to put it. So the one I just watched was about, there's this famous haunted house. And the haunted house only has 6 rooms. And if you make it, no one ever makes it out of this. If you go, you can leave at any time. So you can leave after the first room, after the second room, but nobody ever leaves after the sixth room. And, you know, they find the haunted house, they go to it, and then, you know, I don't want to spoil it in case anybody wants it. But I mean, it's free 30 days right now. So if you're bored for content and you have Amazon, it's sign up, cancel at any time if you're into horror. So it's got some pretty cool stuff on it too.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, you know, I'm a big fan of Audience Network on DirecTV.
Yes.
And let me read you this, and you tell me what it means, because you're the TV guy.
All right.
Effective 5/22/20, AT&T Audience Network will sunset its linear and streaming broadcasts. Does that mean they're going away? Is that what sunset means?
That's my interpretation. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of another interpretation. It wouldn't be they're just going away.
Why don't you say cease or no longer operate? Why do you say sunset?
It sounds nicer.
Yeah, it does sound nicer. But it just, if it means the same thing, which is sad because I really liked it. I mean, Mr. Mercedes was on Audience and all the episodes of Mad Men, and I watched every episode of NYPD Blue and Order. Those were all on.
But that's a DirecTV exclusive, right? Audience?
Yes, it's a DirecTV exclusive.
Well, I think that hurts you right there. I mean, because now you need that audience you need to be a big part of the DirecTV audience, which is already a smaller audience of the overall, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and I started watching Defending Jacob on Apple TV with Chris Evans and a few other people in it. But basically, Chris Evans is a district attorney, or he's a DA or somebody in Boston. Got a lot of really good Boston accents in the show. His son is accused of murder. Making the matters worse, Chris Evans' father, who's played by J.K. Simmons, is in prison right now for murdering somebody. So then it brings up sort of the murder gene and, you know, things along those lines. And and you also have the kid, you know, his accusation basically comes through social media. And then, you know, he's on there playing video games saying, you know, kill him, kill him, kill him, and things along those lines. So it's like, you got to, you know, now that he's been, you know, now that he's on trial, it's like, you know, you can't be talking to this person or that person or, you know, things you put on social media. And, you know, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, I'll have to see where it goes because it seems pretty straightforward so far. But they've put the first 4 episodes up. What's that?
How many episodes have you watched at this point?
4. There's 8 total in the miniseries.
All right. You think you have the other 4 done by next week's show?
That's up to Apple, not me.
Oh, okay.
They've only released. Sometimes, you know, people are putting the entire show, and then other times they're only putting, you know.
Yeah, certain things out.
Yeah, and I initially thought it was a 5-episode miniseries, but halfway through episode 4, I was like, they've got a lot to wrap up, and then I saw that it was 5, and then I went on IMDb, saw that it was 8. There was just only 5 available. So.
Okay. Well, so we get back to whether we're going to recommend them.
Yeah, but it's so far. I mean, if you have Apple TV, which I know is a limited number of people, but it's a nice, straightforward, you know. Yeah.
Any food recommendations this week?
You sent for Maria's birthday. You sent us Treo's tacos from Los Angeles, and they were really good. We got a bunch of corn tortillas. We got some carnitas, it was a pretty simple pork. So it was just basically a salt and pepper, really tender pork. But they make this amazing hot sauce. It's like a thick, dark, spicy, smoky hot sauce. Put that on the pork. It's absolutely delicious. There was a salsa verde, but we had a little bit of an issue with the exploding in the package. But it's a very, very good taco place. Now, I'm sure if you're an LA person, you can probably tell me 20 places that, you know, you think are better than Treo. But Treo's tacos are really, really good, and they're available on Goldbelly, who we promote. They should give us a sponsorship at this point.
Yeah, we should get Goldbelly as an advertiser on our show. Because the other night, Mom and I ate our second Bartolini's deep dish pizza from Chicago for Midlothian, Illinois. And I'm telling you, the first one we had fresh right out of the wrapper, right?
Right.
Because it wasn't frozen when they sent it. It was delicious. So last night, 2 nights ago, we thawed out the frozen one and baked it.
Yeah.
And it was amazing too. So I mean, it's some of the best pizza I've had, and I've never had it in that restaurant. So to me, that's an unbelievable statement. If I ever went there, I might lose my mind.
Now this is I don't want to be down on this one, but I did order Picasso's Pizza from Buffalo. Had a deal where I got 2 pizzas for $40. And they have the kind of pepperoni we like, which is the real pepperoni, but where it kind of curls and sort of burns on the edges. And almost you get like a little cup of cheesy grease. And overall, it was pretty good, but I don't think it was quite worthy of, the big thing is that by the time, it just felt like there was no sauce on it. But we have another one to try. And like you said, the first one we tried, it was defrosted. We just ate it, or we heated it up and ate it. The next one's in the freezer. So we'll see if it somehow regroups or something. But there was a lack of sauce really hurt that pizza, I would say. In Buffalo pizzas.
This Bartolini's from Midlothian, Illinois, and Prince Street Pizza from New York have both raised my expectation for what a pizza that's been frozen can taste like.
And if you just have grocery store frozen pizza, Draft House so far has been maybe one of the best ones.
Which one called?
Draft House.
Okay, because I've had the Hungry Sicilian or whatever that is. I thought that's pretty decent.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. I think Draft House has a lot of cheese and sauce and a really crispy crust, and it's good quality cheese. So
I haven't seen that one. I have to look for it.
Yeah, I think that's fairly national. But that's been one of the best. If you're not doing the Gold Belly, pay to ship in some of the best pizza frozen in the world, that's one of the better ones I've had. Yeah. And then Target carries Outsiders, Detroit style frozen pizza. And Detroit pizza is it's a thicker, pillowy crust, but it's got the crispy edge, and then they have the brick cheese. And the brick cheese forms like a crusty layer on the outside. And Outsiders pizza that I think is there exclusively through Target is actually a pretty good Detroit style pizza. And it comes in its own little cooking pan, so it's a very easy cleanup too.
There's a bonus right there.
There's a bonus right there, because I'm sure everybody that's home, we run the dishwasher every 2 days here. And there's 2 of us that live here outside of the pets. Yep. And the pets aren't making dishes. So,
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. Go on Gold Belly, jazz up your menu. I know the restaurants are starting to open up this week. I'm not telling you to go or not go. I'm telling you to support them. Still, try and support them either with takeout or delivery. And if you want to go, go. But be careful.
Yeah. And again, the nice thing about doing the delivery is you do have the delivery workers are going to get a little bit of money, and the restaurant gets a little bit of money.
Right.
I've ordered my Bayou hot wings every week because it's one of my favorite spots. It's down here. It's local. I want to make sure I continue to support them. So, and I just have it delivered to my house, and it's great.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, hopefully we'll have some more sports news for you next week. Don't know.
You never know.
We're as in the blind as you are.
All right. Stay safe.